Before you scroll past this video, answer me honestly. How many times have you checked your phone in the last hour? How long can you sit with just your thoughts? No phone, no TV, no music, no distraction. 5 minutes? 2? 30 seconds? There's a restlessness that lives in all of us. A hunger that food cannot satisfy. A loneliness that company cannot cure. An ache in the chest that feels like you're homesick for a place you've never been. Your soul is searching for something. And the question is, what are you using to fill that void? Today, I want to ask you a question that might make you uncomfortable. Are you an addict? And before you say no, before you think, I don't do drugs, I'm fine, I want you to take a good look at yourself. Because what I'm about to share might completely change how you see addiction and how you see yourself. Since I released my video about Soul's journey from addiction to recovery, something has been bothering me. I've watched people sympathize with addicts. I've seen people criticize them. I've heard the comments. How could they let it get that bad? Why don't they just stop? I could never. And then I watch those same people, the ones with all the answers, the ones with all the judgment, check their phones 10 times in 10 minutes. The paradox is stunning. An addict judging another addict. But they don't see it. And that's the problem. Here's what society has done brilliantly. It's convinced us that addiction only counts if it involves substances. If it's alcohol, drugs, cigarettes, okay, that's addiction. But everything else? That's just normal. But let me ask you something. If there are 100 people in a room and 95 of them are doing the same thing, does that make it right? Does it make it normal? Or does it just mean that 95 people are trapped in the same pattern and we've agreed to call it normal so we don't have to face the truth? Normal is scrolling through social media for 3 hours a day. Normal is binge-watching entire seasons in one sitting. Normal is eating until you feel sick because you're stressed. Normal is checking your phone the moment you wake up, before you even say good morning to the person next to you. Normal is never being present, always somewhere else, always distracted, always reaching for the next hit of dopamine. We've made peace with these things. We've renamed them. We've hidden behind labels. I'm not an alcoholic. I'm a social drinker. I'm not addicted to cigarettes. I'm an occasional smoker. I don't have a phone addiction. I just need it for work. But strip away the labels. Look at the behavior. Can you stop? Can you choose not to do it? Or does it control you? Let's talk about what addiction actually looks like now. But first, let me tell you what all these addictions have in common. They're all attempts at transcendence. They're all trying to fill a spiritual void with material solutions. They're all your soul crying out for something it can't name, and you're giving it everything except what it actually needs. Social media addiction. You're scrolling, searching, seeking. But for what? Connection? Validation? You're trying to fill that deep existential loneliness. But every like is just a drop in an ocean of emptiness. The Buddhist teachings call it tanha, the craving, the thirst that can never be satisfied. You're drinking from a well that makes you thirstier. Phone addiction, phantom vibrations, panic when you forget it at home. You can't sit through a meal without checking your feed. You know why? Because being present with yourself, with your own thoughts, with the silence, it terrifies you. That phone is your escape from the one thing you're most afraid of: yourself. Food addiction. Eating when you're not hungry. Eating to numb emotions. You're trying to fill a void that food can never fill. You're searching for comfort, for love, for home, in substances that leave you emptier than before. The hunger is real, but it's not for food. It's your soul starving. Porn and sex addiction. The secret tabs, the escalation, the shame cycle. You're seeking connection, transcendence, that moment of ego dissolution where you forget yourself. The mystics and the addicts are drinking from the same well. You've just mistaken the chemical shortcut for the real thing. The impulse is sacred. The method is destroying you. Work addiction. The inability to rest. You're running, constantly running. From what? From that quiet voice inside that asks, who are you when you're not producing, when you're not achieving, when you're just being? You've made yourself so busy that you don't have to face the emptiness. But the emptiness is still there, waiting. Shopping addiction. Trying to buy your way to wholeness. Every package promises fulfillment, and every package delivers disappointment. You're seeking external solutions to internal hungers. It will never work. It has never worked. But you keep going back because the alternative, sitting with what's actually missing, feels unbearable. Gaming addiction. Living in virtual worlds because this one feels too heavy, too painful, too real. You're trying to escape a reality that your soul finds suffocating, but you can't level up your way out of your own life. Drama and chaos addiction. Some people are addicted to problems, to conflict, to crisis. Why? Because intensity feels like aliveness. Because when everything is on fire, you don't have to sit with the deeper questions. Drama is just another numbing agent, just another way to avoid the real work. Do you see the pattern? It's not about the substance. It's never about the substance. It's about what you're running from and what you're running toward. Because beneath every addiction is a holy hunger, a soul reaching for something real, something transcendent, something that will finally make you feel whole. The tragedy isn't the reaching. The tragedy is mistaking the poison for the medicine. Let me tell you something that might sound strange. The impulse that drives addiction is fundamentally spiritual. We're seeking ego dissolution, expanded consciousness, relief from the endless chatter of our minds, connection to something greater than ourselves. We're seeking transcendence. The mystic and the addict are thirsting for the same thing. One has found the spring. The other is drinking from a poisoned well. But the thirst itself is holy. Addiction is this. It's when you can't sit with yourself, when you can't be present with discomfort, when you need something external to regulate what's happening internally, when you're using substances, behaviors, or distractions to avoid the one thing you most need to face, the truth of who you are. It's the soul crying out for meaning, for connection, for home, and you're giving it everything except what it actually needs. And here's what makes behavioral addictions so insidious. They're socially acceptable. Nobody stages an intervention because you check Instagram 100 times a day. Nobody confronts you about binge-watching Netflix every night. Nobody questions your third cup of coffee, your constant busyness, your shopping habit. In fact, entire industries are built on keeping you addicted and calling it normal. Social media platforms hire neuroscientists to make their apps more addictive. Food companies engineer products to hit your bliss point, the exact combination of sugar, fat, and salt that keeps you coming back. Streaming services autoplay the next episode before you can make a conscious choice. We're living in a world designed to keep us addicted, distracted, numb. A world that profits from your disconnection from yourself. A world that fears what would happen if you actually stopped running and sat still long enough to hear that quiet voice inside. Because that voice will change everything. And then we have the audacity to look at someone struggling with substance addiction and think we're different. We're not. We're just addicted to different things. And the substances they're using? At least they're honest about it. At least they call it what it is. But you? You've convinced yourself that your addiction doesn't count because it's normal. Because everyone else is doing it too. If there are 100 people in a room and 95 of them has the same opinion, does that mean that opinion is right? Or does it just mean 95 people saying the same thing, and we just think it is right because majority of the people has the same opinion? Let's talk about something specific. Alcohol. There is no celebration without it. Weddings, birthdays, holidays, promotions, Friday nights, Sunday brunches. Alcohol is the centerpiece. And if you choose not to drink, you're the weird one. You have to explain yourself. You have to justify why you're not participating. Come on, just one drink. What, are you pregnant? Are you an alcoholic? We've normalized it so much that we can't even imagine socializing without it. Social drinker. What does that even mean? You only drink when you're around people? Congratulations, you've made your addiction a social activity. That doesn't make it less of an addiction. Occasional smoker. You only smoke when you drink? When you're stressed? On weekends? Listen to yourself. Listen to the excuses, the justifications, the way you've carved out exceptions so you don't have to face the reality. If you can't stop, you're addicted. If it's harming you and you continue anyway, you're addicted. If you're defending your right to keep doing it this passionately, you're probably addicted. Now, I'm not saying any of this to shame you. Shame is what keeps us trapped. Shame is what makes us hide. Shame is the voice that says, "You're too broken to heal. You're too far gone to change." And that voice is a liar. I'm saying this because I want you to see yourself clearly. When I shared Soul's journey through addiction, that dark path from descent to light, I wasn't just telling one person's story. I was telling the universal story of what happens when we try to escape ourselves. And here's what I realized. The judgment we direct at addicts says more about us than it does about them. It's easier to point at someone else's struggle and feel superior than to examine our own patterns. It's easier to say, "I would never," than to ask, "How am I doing the same thing in a different form?" It's easier to look at their darkness than to face our own. But here's what Soul's story taught me, and what every genuine spiritual path eventually reveals. Sometimes the darkness is the path. Sometimes you have to descend to the depths, to the place where all the superficial supports are stripped away before you can build something real. Sometimes your soul needs to dismantle everything false, every relationship built on pretense, every carefully constructed identity, every belief about who you're supposed to be, before truth can emerge. The mystics call it the dark night of the soul. That period of profound dissolution where everything you thought you were falls apart. And sometimes, often, it arrives wearing the mask of addiction. So here's my challenge to you. Take a good look at yourself. Not to beat yourself up, not to add more shame to the pile, but to see yourself honestly. What do you reach for when you're uncomfortable? What do you use to avoid being present with your own life? What pattern do you defend, justify, minimize? And here's the deeper question, the one that matters. What is your soul actually hungry for? Because beneath every addiction, beneath every compulsion, beneath every escape, there's a sacred longing. A longing for wholeness, for connection, for meaning, for home. The addiction is just your soul's crude, desperate attempt to satisfy that hunger with things that were never meant to feed it. Could you stop? Would you even want to? And if the answer is no, if you can feel the resistance rising, the justifications forming, the defenses activating, then maybe it's time to ask yourself, what am I so afraid to feel that I need this much protection from my own experience? Because here's the truth. We're all trying to escape something. The pain of being human, the discomfort of our own thoughts, the weight of our unexpressed emotions, the terror of our own potential, the emptiness that whispers we're not enough. And we'll use anything, substances, screens, food, work, drama, busyness, to avoid sitting with what's real. But what if, and I offer this gently, with all the compassion of someone who understands, what if that emptiness isn't a problem to fix? What if it's a space meant to be filled with presence, with awareness, with the truth of who you actually are beneath all the noise? So what do we do? How do we break free from these patterns that have such a powerful hold on us? First, we stop pretending we're better than anyone else struggling with addiction. We're all in this together. We're all souls fumbling in the dark, trying to find our way home. Second, we get radically honest with ourselves about our own patterns. Not from a place of shame, but from a place of curiosity. What is this behavior trying to tell me? What am I actually seeking? Third, and this is crucial, we learn to sit with discomfort instead of immediately reaching for our drug of choice. Whatever that drug is, can you sit with boredom, with anxiety, with loneliness, with that restless, unnamed feeling that makes you want to grab your phone, open the fridge, turn on the TV, buy something, do anything except just be? This is the practice. This is where transformation actually happens. Fourth, we find real doorways to transcendence. Because that impulse, that hunger for something beyond your small self, it's not wrong. It's not the problem. The problem is trying to satisfy it with things that can't possibly fulfill it. Meditation, prayer, nature, art, service, deep connection, movement, silence. These are the real doors, not the shortcuts, not the false escapes. the actual paths to the expanded consciousness your soul is craving. Fifth, we cultivate genuine compassion for others and for ourselves. Because here's what Soul's story taught me, what my own journey taught me. Addiction isn't a moral failing. It's not weakness. It's not something that happens to other people. It's what happens when we don't have the tools to be with ourselves, when we're disconnected from our own truth, when we're trying to fill a spiritual void with material solutions. And the path out isn't through judgment, it's through understanding, through recognizing that beneath every addiction is someone trying to feel less alone, trying to feel whole, trying to come home to themselves. Sixth, we embrace the journey. Transformation isn't instant. Awakening doesn't happen all at once. The path from darkness to light is gradual, messy, non-linear. There will be setbacks, moments of weakness, times when you fall back into old patterns. But here's what matters. Each time you choose presence over escape, awareness over numbing, truth over pretense, your soul gets stronger, the light gets brighter, and eventually you realize something extraordinary. The light was always there. You just couldn't see it because you were looking in the wrong direction. Outside yourself, in substances and escapes and endless distractions, rather than in the depths of your own awareness. So the next time you see someone struggling with addiction, any addiction, I want you to pause before you judge. I want you to recognize, that could be me. That is me. Just with a different substance, a different escape route, a different mask over the same wound. We're all in this together. We're all souls trying to find our way in a world that's forgotten the sacred. We're all reaching for transcendence in a culture that offers us only temporary escapes. And maybe, if we stopped judging each other and started seeing ourselves clearly, if we stopped hiding behind the word normal and started asking what's actually healthy, what actually serves the soul, if we stopped defending our right to stay numb and started choosing to be present, we might actually heal. Not just individually, but collectively. Because here's what I know now. After walking through my own darkness, after witnessing soul's journey from addiction to awakening, every addiction is the soul's crude, desperate attempt to call you home. Every compulsion is a message saying, there's something deeper here that needs your attention. Every escape is a longing for transcendence that's been misdirected. The substances, the behaviors, the endless distractions, they're not the enemy. They're just the symptoms of a much deeper hunger. A hunger for meaning, for connection, for wholeness. For that quiet place inside where you finally feel like you're enough, exactly as you are. And that hunger, that restlessness, that ache in your chest that feels like homesickness for a place you've never been, that's your soul calling you home. The question is, are you listening? So I'll ask you one more time. Are you an addict? Take a good look at yourself. Look at what you reach for when you're uncomfortable. Look at what you can't go a day without. Look at what you defend when someone suggests you might have a problem. Look beneath the behavior to the hunger underneath. And ask yourself, what is my soul actually seeking? Because the answer to that question, The real, honest, vulnerable answer. That's where your freedom lives. That's where your healing begins. That's where the light breaks through. The darkness isn't your enemy. It's your teacher. And the addiction? It might just be the doorway to the awakening you've been searching for all along. Choose wisely. The light is closer than you think,